So what happens is, after, in my employment contracts, I have these 5 things. Number 1, I have a confidentiality clause. My customers do not want their information spread around. So I have a confidentiality clause. Each staff member signs a confidentiality clause. Number 2, I have a restraint of trade, especially for those people that are very involved with my business. So if you've got a rep, I don't care if it's your family member. Let them sign a restraint of trade that is reasonable. It stands. There's this urban legend that says a restraint of trade does not work anymore in South Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, restraints of trade work, provided they are reasonable. Okay? The third thing that I have in my employment contract is a thing called abuse of internet. And I understand Facebook and Twitter and all these things are good for my business, but there must be a limit on that. I also have an indication on my employment contract of the amount of private usage they can make on their phone. Otherwise, you're going to have a huge phone bill. So I let my staff have 20 rands worth a month of private phone call usage. After that, they pay. I have a telephone answering system that monitors that. So all of those things are very, very important. It's all written down. Man, I don't care if you do a little picture like that that says, staff information required, ID book, proof of address if you like, next of kin, employment contract is signed, register them with SARS and the UIF, go probation, review, and by the way, those of you that also think probation is not allowed, it is allowed. You're allowed to put people on probation. Then I penned it for performance review, and then my human resources takes the whole process all the way through. And if you like, you don't have to do it in writing. It can be done like this. You can map it. You can draw a picture. Okay? So I have a new client. This is a little example. New client process, day 1. Client gets welcome documentation. Okay, there's certain information I have to give them. They give me a copy back. So that copy must be filed by the next day. Client data form completed. Client gets a data form. 3 days later, my staff phones and says, sorry, ma'am, Heather, have you managed to complete that form? She says, no. Then I have another system that says penned for another 3 days. Okay? But that's how simple it can be, ladies. It doesn't have to be this phenomenally expensive process. I did a little search on the internet. Maybe you want to go and have a look at this. I find it a bit complicated. It's www, and it's free, by the way. It's a process program. www called Bonita Soft. BONITA soft.com. www.bonitasoft.com. Do a Google search on that. They have a whole thing on processes and procedures for free. So you see, it's a simple, it doesn't have to be this complicated, expensive process that we think it is. So if I have a staff health check, this is what I'm going to look at. Take your sales figure. Divide it by your wages and salaries figure. And you're going to get a ratio. Let's say it's 2:1. So if my sales are 100 and my staff costs are 50, that's 2:1. Okay? When that measurement goes up, it means my productivity is up. But if it goes up too high, it means I must start employing more staff. So when I'm looking at a healthy business, I see how is the measurement, how is that ratio in my business or in your business. So what is the sales versus staff costs? And again, you can plot a trend. You can do it over 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The trend is what's important. I like my staff to multitask, because if Amanda's sick, then Vuyo must actually be able to help with Amanda's work. The other reason for that is, if you have a staff member, and I say this with respect, in my humble opinion, if you have a staff member that refuses to go on leave, be afraid. Be very afraid, okay? Because very often they don't want to go on leave because they're scared of what you're going to find in the top left-hand drawer, okay? So compel staff members to take at least their statutory 2 weeks, in fact it's law, consecutive 2 weeks leave. But again, multitasking is very important. Standard operating procedures. Does your staff member have a standard operating procedure? I don't care if it's reception, how to answer the phone. I don't care if it's filing, how you do the filing. I don't care if it's debtor control or credit control. Is it written down in a very simple format? That will make your business a lot healthier than if you didn't have those things in place. So I reckon if your staff has been with you for 3 years or so, you've got a pretty healthy staff ratio or a state of health. I also really, my staff are phenomenal. They've all been with me for more than 3 years, and they are happy to stay for the extra half an hour after the 5 o'clock. Okay? When it's Boss's Day, I get little presents. That's an indication that you've got happy staff. So, staff health check, to me, those are the ways I check it. And if you can be in that situation, I wouldn't suggest. If you've got financial health check and a staff health check, you're in a good place. Again, don't try to do it all in once. Take bit by bit by bit. Take 3 goals. Suppliers, okay, if I've got a problem with my suppliers. I'm suffering from costolectomy, which is, am I sure I'm getting the best price? How do you know if you're getting the best price? Unless you review and negotiate. The terms and conditions, ladies and gentlemen, must be in writing. Please. Because you might have a nice verbal agreement with the buyer or the procurement officer at a certain business, and that guy's fired, or that guy resigns. Then how do you prove what your terms were? Or if it's small business to small business, and we often do this, it's a spit and a handshake, man, don't worry, we'll sort it out. Don't do that. Even if you don't have to get an attorney out to draft your terms and conditions. Just in simple, in fact, the Consumer Protection Act says you've got to do this now anyway. In simple English, write down what it is you expect from your supplier and how you're going to pay them. Obviously, you need to review this yearly. Because I know what happens. We get into a situation when we start our business and we get 3 quotes for everything. After 2 or 3 years, you think, hey, this guy's always been giving me the right price. So you always buy from that certain supplier. Be afraid again. Check out that supplier. And if you are that supplier, make sure that your dedicated customers are always getting the best deal. Preempt that. Make sure you're looking after your customers if you're the supplier. And if you are the customer, make sure your suppliers are looking after you. On the 31st of December, every single year, the value of your car goes down. Do not wait for the insurance broker to review your insurance premiums. Phone him. Say, excuse me, it's now the 1st of January, the 2nd. You'll not be very happy if you phone him on the 1st. Please, can you review my insurance? Don't wait for him, because you're the one that's paying the premium. Exactly the same applies for your suppliers. Because it does affect your cash flow at the end of the month, not so. I always get 3 quotes. So again, you have a system. If I'm procuring, I need to say, this is how I procure. Number 1, application for pencils and pens. Number 2, signed off by a departmental manager. Number 3, signed off by business owner. Number 4, 3 quotations received. And so, you know what, you get the drift. Don't just go and buy the same thing, especially high-cost items. If you're buying something that's expensive in your view, shop around, get the best price. Don't think the big departmental stores don't give discount. Okay. If you don't ask, you don't get. Okay, that is so true. Okay, so from a supplier perspective, you need to draw yourself a map like that. The request, procurement, creditors department. Question to yourself, am I getting the goods that I ordered? If I've ordered 20 cases of Coca-Cola, am I getting 19 cases? So is there a system to check that? Okay. Other thing I have a fear of is ignoramus fever. We sign anything just to get credit facilities with a supplier. Be aware, ladies and gentlemen, that very often we tell you as attorneys and business consultants and accountants, use a close corporation. Use a company because it protects your personal assets. Do you hear that? From the business risk. Guess what? In a lot of those contracts, you actually sign a suretyship anyway. What I did one year is when I applied for facilities, I deleted the section in the back. It's normally a little writing about this big. I deleted it and said, I'm not standing surety for this facility. And very often those forms are signed by your managers. Do your managers know that they're responsible for your business debt? If you check that little contract out, delete it if you can. Obviously, you might run the risk where they won't give you the facility. Or you might be lucky and they don't read the contract themselves once they've received it. And they don't notice that you've actually deleted it. Okay. The comment is, if you are so confident with your business, why don't you stand surety for the business? I'm saying to you, don't. Okay, because why run that risk? You obviously may not get the credit. But you as the business owner, if you're supplying credit to a CC, make sure they sign it. Make sure in your application for credit, you have a suretyship agreement. And if you request mine, there is a little suretyship agreement in there. But as the business owner, I don't want you to sign it. But as the credit supplier, if you're giving the credit, please make sure the people sign it. Okay, so it depends on which side of the fence you are sitting at. Okay, understand the cash flow implications. Read the small print. They might only pay you in 90 days. Sorry, I rephrased that. They might want payment in 30 days. And your customer is only going to pay you in 90 days. Understand the cash flow implications. Read that contract. A lot of businesses have gone out of business because they got this big contract, but the supplier wanted to be paid in 30 days and the customer only paid in 90 days. Understand the cash flow implications. If you're providing collateral, I think you need better terms. So instead of getting prime, maybe you should get prime -1, especially if you're providing suretyships and collateral. So negotiate those things, ladies and gentlemen. So from a business perspective, if I want a healthy business, I can see that you have got an account application form. I can see that you have got signed suretyships and collaterals signed and all the better terms are in place. But you have to prove it to me because it has to be in writing. Okay, so what is a healthy business? Well, in a supplier perspective, you've got 30 days plus. The higher, the better. 90 days, even better. The supplier reassessment, in other words, you've got a system where you reassess your suppliers every year. That's diarized and documented. Standard operating procedures in writing. If you have all of those, ladies and gentlemen, you have a healthy business from a supplier point of view. From a financial point of view, we've sorted. From a supplier point of view, we sorted. From a staff point of view, we supported. Your clients are going to be able to also help you recover from month-enditis. You got your terms and conditions agreed in writing. They're going to pay you a 50% deposit, remember? They're going to pay you the balance within 30 days, all in writing.